if everyone's perspective about who's actually running the show in a real estate transaction and we're working for them to add value in something that they don't know about that we do, then everyone will have a lot better outcomes.
Welcome everyone to the Closing Table Podcast, real accounts from real estate professionals, brought to you by WindowStill. I'm your host, Kat Schooler, and today I'm sitting down with real estate agent Katie Lucie. Katie is with the Grove Group by Real out in Jupiter, Florida. And Katie is a wealth of knowledge. She is a local expert and a contributing writer at BAM, and you should go check out all of her articles because they are filled with so many actionable items. And some of them we talk about today, like her QR code mailer that was turning heads, how she builds out her media for each listing, and then we talk about her community-focused approach and her value-centered view on real estate. So without further ado, let's talk to Katie. Katie, thank you so much for joining me today. I'd love to just kick it off with your story of how you got started in real estate.
Yeah, no problem. So I have been in real estate for about 4.5 years. I actually used to be a scientist, totally normal pre-real estate career, I know. I didn't love some aspects of the research and medical field, and I always loved real estate, but I was in science and all that, so I just kind of didn't put it together. Then when I started having kids, and my husband's also in the medical field, I knew that I wasn't going to do that anymore because two parents can't really have a 6 a.m. start. So I kind of was like, I'll get my feet wet, dabble in it so that in 5 years when I really, get rolling, I can be like, hey, I've been doing this for 5 years. Turns out there was a lot more opportunity than I expected. Then 2021 happened and a bunch of other things that really allowed, kind of accelerated the path I was planning on. So I still have a business that I can kind of build out my lifestyle and my schedule the way that I do need it to be able to still be there for my kids. I have 3 little kids. They're 3, 5, and 7, so I'm not really out of the woods yet. But it's just kind of what got me into it in the first place. And I learned that the business building aspects of this industry I am obsessed with, and I didn't have those in other industries. So I know that this is kind of what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and I mean, and you've certainly dug in and really kind of gone all in. You're a contributing writer for BAM, and you've written a lot. And I would love to dig into some of those topics because I think you have so much knowledge and we can learn so much from you. But let's start by talking about working with clients. Mm-hmm. When you're sitting down with someone for the first time, either on the buy or sell side, what does that meeting look like? What kind of information are you gathering? What information are you giving?
Yeah, I mean, so I do both. I do sell and buy, but I do primarily listings. So typically when I walk into a house, I'm finding out why they're moving. I have a lot of demographic that are older. So I have some boomers. They may be moving to assisted living. Right now I have 3 listings right now where the children that are in their 50s or 60s are moving their parents into assisted living. So that kind of transition is a little different. But if I were just going to a typical house where a family is upgrading or whatever it may be, I'm going to find out what their goal is. Because talking about their goal is the best. This is our job. So we go into houses all the time with an objective to sell the house, to get the most money and market it the way we know we can. But their objective is to get to their next goal. So sometimes it's sensitive, sometimes it's not. So when you lead with what they're trying to get to, it goes a lot easier, and you actually get them to open up a lot quicker too, because some people aren't thrilled about it. Some people, it's moving for a need instead of a want, and you kind of have to be delicate and find out what the game plan is.
Certainly. And I think even sometimes when you want to move and it's exciting, it can still be very, stressful, especially nowadays. Inventory is kind of low, and finding the right fit might look differently than it did a decade ago.
For sure. And I mean, I wasn't in the industry a decade ago, but I bought a house a decade ago and it was a lot different. And it absolutely is, it's a lot different now, for sure.
Certainly. So do you have any memorable client stories, times where you've helped them sell or maybe overcome an obstacle?
I mean, yeah, a lot of them. So So I'll tell you, I closed one yesterday, and they were first-time home buyers, which isn't always my forte. I typically am going for sellers and for move-up buyers. So first-time home buyers sometimes need a little more hand-holding, which I do like that aspect of it, like teaching them and showing them kind of how it's going on. But, there's also harder elements. They're usually younger. They usually have tighter budgets, and they usually have less of a clear idea of what they want in a functional house. So it's a little more hand-holding. So anyway, so I met this couple. I met them on Instagram. They're wonderful. They're adorable. They're probably like in their early 20s. They just got married, and they knew kind of what they wanted, but we had gone to a few different neighborhoods and found what they were looking for. But their budget was fairly tight, and they seem like they're really good with their money. So they seemed like they knew exactly what they wanted to spend a month, and they wanted to keep the rest of their funds for reserve, which is the smartest thing to do when you're buying a house. So we ended up getting them a house, and it appraised for $37,000 over appraisal, which in this market is like insane right now. And it was just a really, really challenging other side of the deal. And there was just a ton of hiccups, and I like shared everything I needed to with them, but I also like kind of just dealt with the lady by myself mostly, because I feel like it would have completely blown up the transaction if they knew how like insane the other, like some of the things I was dealing with were. And that's like an aspect when you're a first time home buyer, you're going to be like, oh, this isn't like right, or like that doesn't matter. So if you don't like the other side of your deal, if you don't like the lender, if you don't like the agent, it doesn't matter. They're going to be gone in like 30, 60 days. So just kind of like knowing what to prioritize when you are looking for a home, and then being able to like differentiate like either the emotional aspects and then the actual functional assets to get you what you want is kind of something that I feel like I did a really good job of helping them overcome.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's so good to hear.
Yeah.
And I think it is really tough being a first-time home buyer in this current market, especially, you save, and depending where you are in the country, it might be different. But, a lot of times I think, and listen, I put myself in this category too. We have tight budgets and big dreams,
For sure. I live in a very expensive area. Our average price point for single family homes this quarter is 1.8. It's insane. Like entry level homes that need a lot of work are $500,000. It's very expensive.
Yeah, and then having the kind of budget to do those upgrades is just a whole other story.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'd love to dig into some of your marketing approach.
Sure.
And I would love for you to just kind of lay out for us like how you approach marketing and build out your media for your homes that you're selling.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. So kind of a two-part question. So I love marketing, and I love like data-driven, value-based marketing. So like getting all the basic kind of real estate salesy 101, it's hard to do, because unless you're talking to someone that is literally thinking about transacting in the next 30 days, you just sound like a salesperson, and it's so off-putting. So coming at it from like a value, like I can talk to a homeowner that literally just bought their home. I know they're not going to sell it, most likely. They bought it 6 months ago, but I can still talk to them about things specific to their home. So I'm getting the information I need, and I don't sound salesy, because the way you come at it when you're at a value first approach, it comes off better. But so that part of marketing I love. I do a lot of geographical farming, and I try to make my social as valuable as I can for like an actual consumer, like someone in my market that's thinking about buying or selling in Jupiter. Then for listings, I mean, there's a few things. So when I go to an appointment, I will throw something up on my story just to be like, hey, I'm doing an appointment around here, like let me know. So that when I go to the appointment, I can tell that seller like, hey, 3 agents and 2 potential buyers already DM me in 1 hour, because it's just the power of social media, especially when I'm talking to like a demographic that doesn't necessarily understand or believe in the power of social. If I can prove it to them, like, hey, 2 hours ago I did this and 12 people have already called me about your house that's not on the market, that I don't even know if you're going to hire me for. It's very impressive, right? And it helps them understand. Then if you show them like some metrics, like in your presentation, they get like, oh, wow, that video got 12,000 views. Like, who were those people? And it kind of helps. So I always do a story pre-appointment. And then when it comes to coming soon, depending on how much time I have, because sometimes like I'll go to an appointment on a Tuesday and they're like, can we get the photographer here tomorrow? And we list on Thursday. But when I can, I love doing it coming soon. Like I have one coming on the 18th of September. I already got the pictures done, so I can do a lot of rollout marketing now. So for coming soon, I'll probably do like a teaser, either like a drone flyover or just like a picture, or like if it's in a good spot in town, you could do like a map or something like that to show like this is where it's at, or 5 minutes to the beach and 10 minutes to Costco, or whatever you think like the main draw is. And then when you get a new listing, I mean, you should at least, I think you should at least have 2 or 3 videos for every listing. So you can have a regular like walkthrough video. Like I just did one where actually a beautiful apartment, but it's a entry level apartment in my area, and there's not like too much to show. But it's right off on a park. So I like showed the park. I showed like 2 or 3 main highlights, and then I walked through the house while I was saying like for less than 10 grand, you can get into this house at this monthly payment, or you can put 20% down. So like breaking down the numbers and like showing people something, if it's kind of, because every house isn't, Instagram ready, right? Like every house isn't beautiful and amazing. So you have to still find a way to like be engaging and make it look appealing. So you could talk about, the neighborhood stats, the proximity to things, or what it would cost to get in there based on today's interest rates and down payment. And then if there's like I have another listing that's by this amazing park. It's a very popular park on the beach. It has nature. You can kayak, paddleboard, super cool. I'm having my drone guy do a video of that, which is not related to my listing, but it's right next door. So in the voiceover, I'm just going to talk about my listing being right next door. And then in like a few months, I can use it again for something else and do a different voiceover. So, yeah.
Ooh, that's great. Yeah. I've been seeing a lot more in real estate photos mostly, but I love the idea of a drone of kind of showing the local downtown. And I think that's really cool to paint a picture for people.
For sure. Absolutely. And then, I run like Facebook ads. We have a lot of people coming, South Florida, so a lot of people come from all over the country, but you can use tools like How Many Walks to see like where they're coming from. And like, let's say Connecticut and Jersey are the 2 big hotspots right now. I can put some ads up there. But also like neighborhood, like marketing. I love print so much. So I'll send like mailers to the neighbors. They're probably not going to buy the house, but if it's a really good neighborhood, especially one that doesn't have a lot of turnover, they have friends, especially friends from out of town. They're like, I love your neighborhood, or I love this. So it's always good to get those leads as well.
Yeah. And oh yeah. And then I was thinking like, we're in Michigan. It's kind of like the thing in Michigan that you retire and you move to Florida, right? And I think it is probably in a lot of other states too. And so, having, getting out to the local people, they could be telling their friends locally or nationally, like, hey, we said you should come move to Florida with us,
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And marketing in those areas and marketing to other agents across the country. Like I have strategic partners all over the country. Then I have everyone that's in my brokerage too that I could reach out to, and a few other kind of like platforms that I'm part of, like BAM and like Curator and a couple other things. So it really helps, especially if you're like in a niche market. Like one of my friends was just asking me about horse, like equestrian markets, and I don't have that much. We have a very big equestrian market just 30 minutes away from me, and then Ocala, just like a couple hours, is another one. So it's like you can know the markets throughout the country and like market to them because it's obviously a niche market.
Totally. So it sounds like you do it all, and I think I read in some of your articles that you hit it all. The social media, the email newsletters, physical newsletters, YouTube. How do you manage all of that?
So it took me like a year of like trying and failing and being like burnt out, and then trying and just finding out which ones really, really help me move the needle where I get traction. And then I just have which I'm currently now in another phase. I'm now drafting it all into an SOP to pass it off to an assistant because I'm ready to change my calendar. But I pretty much perfected my calendar so that every morning I have like a checklist. Like, okay, today you do like LinkedIn, Google, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. And then the next day it's another set. And mostly I keep up with it. And some days I don't. Like I just got off of July and August where I had my kids are out of school. There's not that many camps. It's a little wacky. So I will make some modifications for next summer. But, you have to be very strategic and intentional with what tasks you do or what tasks you assign somebody, because otherwise you're just going to be chasing shiny objects all over town.
Totally. And it's so easy to get distracted anymore.
It's so easy to get distracted. It's so easy. So you got to really be intentional not to.
Yeah, and especially with the social, media aspect of it, it's so easy to then just get like caught scrolling. Like I find that happens to me too. I'm posting a reel for the podcast, and next thing you know, I'm scrolling.
Right? I know. I try to be good. I try to before I post something, I try to do a little bit of engaging with other accounts, and then I'll try to do on the back end of when I post, engage with them, and then I try really hard to not continue to log on throughout the day, because your phone is an interruption to everything when you're working. So,
you wrote an article going to your kind of print mailers that you did this QR code mailer. Can you tell us about that?
So I do QR codes on a lot of my mailers. Give me a little more.
Okay, this was the name your price QR
code.
Oh
yeah, so that was amazing. That went so good. That was a Jimmy Mackin 100% rip off of Jimmy Mackin. He has a platform called Curator, which I'm part of, and it's phenomenal for listing promotions and email management and websites. But then he has another one called Listing Leads. Him and Tom Ferry started it. And anybody that wants more listings, I mean, this is not a promo for them, but you should sign up for it because that shit is good. So sorry, I said shit. It is an excellent platform. They have a ton of templates for either I have a buyer campaigns or postcards or whatever. So that was one of them. So I have a buyer for this geographical farm. I have a bunch of them actually. So I always try to do anything to be one super in their face brand awareness, because I want every single one of those 1,500 people to know who I am. And then also I'll throw in occasionally a straight up call to action, someone to raise their hand for potentially listing their home, so that I can then go for and follow them around the internet and call them as much as I can. So that was one of them. So it was the most simple thing ever. It literally said name your price, and there was a QR code in the middle. I had a very upper level executive at a very big company who lives in my farm in a very expensive house call me just to tell me that this marketing was so good. So it definitely catches the eye of the right kind of people. And I had a lot of people scan the QR code. I don't remember how many right now, but a lot of people did. So when they scanned the QR code, it went to an automatic text message to my phone that said something along the lines of name your price and I'll send you a home equity report within 24 hours. So a lot of people actually didn't include their address, which I kind of was a little bit of a mishap on my end. I should have made it different, but it's fine because I just looked up their information and found all their addresses. But pretty much I sent them a very detailed, very, very branded home equity report that was in a nice branded folder, had everything you can imagine wanting information on their house. And if they lived there for a long time, I'd add a downsizing thing or how to declutter your house. So I just kind of tried to make it as customized to them as from what I knew of, because it was my farm. So I do know a lot of these neighbors. I know a lot of the houses and the demographics, and it worked really well. I actually have 3,000 more in my car right now that I'm going to send out for other buyers in other communities that are not my farm. Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's so cool. I'm so glad that was so fruitful for you.
It was. And it's so easy. And it's different because, usually we want branding, especially when we're sending mailers the same place. We want them to all know who we are. And this had no branding on it whatsoever besides what I needed to do for compliance. And I don't know, it was less intimidating, I guess. So people liked it.
And I think it sparks your curiosity,
Yeah, that's exactly what one of the people that I talked to said that. That's the only reason why they reached out, because they were like, this is so clever. I didn't even know what it was. You could have been any industry, anything. So I was like, yep. So
yeah, I would probably do it even if I wasn't selling,
Right? Exactly. So yeah, no, it went really good. I love mailers, and it's fun to kind of test and research which ones hit and which ones don't. And based on how many scans you get, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So sort of along this lines, I'd love to talk about how you create buzz for your real estate events.
Okay. So I have like a couple. So I do pretty much 3 events right now. One, I'm doing seller seminars, which are the ones that I put the most money behind. So I have a whole system on like YouTube ads, which I'm not big on posting YouTube, but I feel like I found a little bit of a loophole because I always thought this sounds too intimidating and like a mountain to climb up to get people to subscribe to my channel and to kind of like start a draw there. But I don't have to. I can just pay for ads and they can still see it. So it's really ideal. So I will, for my seller seminars, do a pretty good chunk of change behind those ads. And that's just like once every 6 or 7 weeks, I do a seller seminar at a local attorney's office. I have lunch, I have snacks, I have waters. It's about a 30 to 45-minute presentation. It's very conversational. I have a PowerPoint where I go over everything from about me, about town. The historical growth of my town is pretty astronomical. So I go over a little bit about that. Then I go over, how to market your home, what you need to do to prepare your home, some of my seller services. And anyway, so those have been going off really well. I realized you asked me about how I get a hype for those. So I'll tell you that. So another thing I do is in my geographical farm, I rent a Kona ice truck and it is like $300 or $400. And it is the biggest hit like ever. Like all the people that live in the neighborhoods, they love it. At first they were like, why are you doing this? And I just am trying to get in front of them. And now they like kind of expect it. 3 times a year, I rent a Kona ice truck. I'll send like something on the back of one of my mailers so that everyone in that 1,500, all those 1,500 homes know that I'm doing something fun, but I really only go to about 300 homes. So each one of those 300 homes will get a door hanger, which is really cute, and it has the Kona ice thing. Their kids usually see it, and they want the Kona ice, right? So that is the way that I promote those events. One of the neighborhoods, they'll put it up on like the Facebook group for the neighborhood, because I live in between the 2 neighborhoods, but I don't actually live in either of them. They're about a mile apart. And I will post stuff on my social. That's, pretty easy, at least stories of what I'm doing. And then, if I were to do an open house at like I have a listing coming on probably next month, and it's a fun house. Like they have kids, it's a party house. I know like they have like a beautiful pool, a cool, all sorts of good stuff. So I want to probably have like a Kona ice truck there, and I'm going to make all the videos kind of themed around like a fun party house, like kid-friendly fun party house. And I'll probably use that in marketing, like a neighborhood-only event where I'll get Kona ice and make it kind of a combination of a big open house and pushing that with door hangers and neighborhood invites. Pretty much just talk about it as much as you can.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love the Kona ice truck especially. And I love hearing when people kind of like make it more of an event than just kind of your standard open house where, your real estate agent is hanging out, which is totally fine.
Totally.
That is some people's comfort level.
For sure.
But I think it's really fun when it is like an event, and I think it tends to work out for everyone involved.
It totally does. And you're so right. Like it makes it like an event. It's more approachable for all the neighbors to come. And then when you start talking to these neighbors, you find out like, oh, your kids are going to college? Great. Like, or your best friend wants to move here? Super. So it definitely is beneficial for agents to do stuff like that.
Yeah. I think I read a statistic once that was like, it was either 60 or 66% of people who go to open houses really aren't looking to buy a home. So,
right.
People are just coming to peek anyway.
Yeah.
But I think if you're get them to spend a little more time there, get a little more face time with them, then it's only beneficial in the long run.
For sure. Totally agree.
So, Katie, you've been at real estate for about 4 years now. What would you say is the biggest lesson you've learned?
This is kind of corny, but like if you just are focused on doing right for people instead of like being obsessed with yourself, you're going to win. And you're not, it's unreal when you put other people first, how much more growth you can have. Because like this NAR stuff, everyone is complaining and just whining about literally everything. And I just got a huge huge buyer because they're from out of state. They called me and they called another agent that has a way bigger team than me, has way more dollars behind her SEO and just a bigger name, right? And they called her and they were talking to them about everything under the sun, and all the real estate agents were talking about were the new rules and the buyer broker agreements. These people aren't even in town. We're not going to look at a house today. So it's like, cool. And I like start emailing her like about the neighborhoods and regular doing my job kind of stuff. And of course, I want to get paid and I will get paid, but that's like down the road. Like I'm not even there yet. But just it's like what you focus on. It's when you focus on what's right for people, then you do better. So that's probably the easiest thing to. It's probably been the biggest eye opener that this industry has shown me, because I did know that. I mean, I've known that my whole life, but it's very apparent here. It is very, very apparent in our industry.
Right. This is kind of like an illuminating moment for a lot of people.
It really is. And the way you handle it is noticed by everybody, even if they don't really understand why. It's going to make a difference.
Mm-hmm. There's kind of like, we all have a bit of a sixth sense, you know, and we all have these phrases about it, you know, trust your gut, or, you know, it just felt off. And I think maybe if people aren't noticing it up here, they're noticing it here, you know, and it makes a big difference.
For sure. 100%. So,
what would you say is the biggest challenge you're facing in the real estate market right now, and how are you working to overcome it?
So challenge like as our industry as a whole, you mean, or like my personal challenge?
Oh, we could do either way, whichever you prefer.
Okay. So I think our industry as a whole is too focused on themselves, which we are a very big part of the real estate transaction. But like if everybody has if everyone's perspective about who's actually running the show in a real estate transaction and we're working for them to add value in something that they don't know about that we do, then everyone will have a lot better outcomes. Because I just like I'm right now in the process of building out like my mission, my vision, my values, all those things when you're building a team out that are really, you know, like deep diving into what you're doing. And just the perspective, I feel like, is such an important factor. And when you do anything, especially business, because it's, you know, obviously easier to measure the metrics, right? But like having the right perspective is a really big deal. So that's probably one of the challenges I think that our industry has, especially now, because our perspective was already kind of tainted in a way we have a bad reputation, somewhat justified reason, right? So when you take that already kind of on the rock situation, and then you add a major industry change that violates what real estate agents find to be their right to get paid easily and like set by the listing agent, like it's kind of all a package deal, it gets worse. Things get worse. So people are kind of frantic, and I think a lot of players in our industry that aren't with the right perspective and they don't have the right mindset are going to have a hard time continuing to close deals, because it's going to be harder to maintain business because you need to articulate your value and let them know what you're doing for them. So, and my biggest bottleneck in industry is really just getting through, like, so I've been building and I'm trying to do it as strategically as possible and just continue going forward when you're building. It actually is really hard. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes sense, but just kind of pushing through without getting distracted, because there are so many distractions, and just staying true and having like blind faith in yourself, knowing that like what I see as happening is going to happen. It's just, I got a lot of stuff to do before I get there. Right. And all this stuff is the bottleneck.
I totally understand. I think, you know, maybe if you're a bit of a perfectionist, like, or a recovering perfectionist like me, you know, you kind of wish that you could push pause on everything and be like, okay, I want it all to be perfect before we start up again, but that's not necessarily realistic, right? So you kind of feel
Right.
like you're trying to tie your shoes while you're like jogging, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm very sympathetic to that feeling. But I also think like it's a good reminder that like what you're doing is already so strong,
Yeah.
and people are finding value in it, and people will continue to find value with you as you grow and as you're learning to grow.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, of course. Katie, are there any real estate myths out there you'd like to debunk?
Okay. Let me think. So real estate myths. Yes. So the biggest I mean, so there's a lot of agents, there's a lot of people in business that negotiate in different ways, and that's totally fine. Like there's different personality types. That is great. But like the biggest myth is that we have to like bulldog our way to get what we want and negotiate like we're some kind of badass, when the truth is we need to have our values and stay true to it so that we get our clients what we want and we are treated the way we want to be treated throughout the process. But like we are all working towards the same thing, which is a closed deal. So if we all are trying to get to the same place, like we don't always have to have this like external hard shell on. And I feel like that's a big myth in our industry. It's gonna be like, oh, like don't show them anything. Like gotta be tough and all that stuff. Which I mean, you do, but not to the degree that I think people are. And I also think there's a huge misinformation for buyers and sellers. Like sellers think their house is going to sell in 5 seconds. Buyers think they're never going to afford a house. Like when's the right time to buy? Like the right time to buy is when you're ready to buy. There's so many things that go into that. And it's not just real estate agents. You got to talk to lenders. You got to talk to your spouse or your family and like figure out what the plan is. And then it's the right time to buy. And like, people have a lot of fear. Like consumers, I feel like have a lot of fear. That's a myth. That's very misguided fear. And I don't know why. I mean, I get it. It's a really big, stressful thing and it is very expensive to buy a house, but it is misguided and it's a myth.
Yeah. I think it's, to your first point about kind of being these hard negotiators, I wonder if some of that comes from like we all watch a little too much like reality real estate television,
Maybe.
and like some of those, shows, they they're entertainment. So there is going to be like a heightened aspect,
Of course.
when you're watching, Selling Sunset or whatever, and they're
Right.
negotiating. And or maybe we watch too much like law TV and
Right.
that too,
Right.
but I think when you remember, that that's just a person on the other end of the phone
Yeah.
who's trying to do their job too. Like,
Yeah.
you're building relationships with the other agents too.
For sure. I've gotten deals plenty of times because I was nice to the other agent and they thought, okay, well, this person's nice and seems competent. Let's like give them a shot over the person that's like trying to be a badass. I don't know. It's nice to be nice.
Yeah, yeah. What was your second myth? I had something to say about that one too.
Just like the mindset of consumers, like
Oh,
either being
yes.
like worried or thinking it's like I'm waiting for the right time to buy. Like there's no right time to buy. Like if you're extremely wealthy and you're buying investment properties when it goes down because you have cash on hand, then sure, there's a right time to buy. But for a regular human being that's just trying to buy a house or upgrade because they have 2 kids, now they have 3, and they're like, oh, my house is too small. Like buy another house.
Yeah.
So
I think some of that is there's like some fear in the media right now, but
yeah,
I think that has more to do with the 24-hour news cycle than real estate.
totally. It does. But it's still it's impactful regardless of how dumb it is. It is very impactful because I talk to people all the time and their thoughts of what is going on is it's just wrong. And I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I think that's when, people should follow their local agent, follow you
Great.
if you're in Jupiter, follow,
Yeah.
whoever's in your town and providing value on their socials or through their stories,
Yeah.
because that's going to be a more local view
For
than
sure.
the kind of national view.
Real estate is hyper local. I mean, of course, national things do come into effect, but we are a very hyper local industry, and you should always talk to local everything.
Katie, did you set any goals for this year? And if so, how are they going? And would you like to share them with us?
I mean, I have a volume goal that was pretty lofty, and I actually might hit it, so that's exciting.
Oh, yay.
I have some very strategic, specific goals related to like building out some systems and having some kind of a tech stack and some other things that I've been trying to plan out, and I've been evaluating it for like, I don't know, 6 months. But yeah, the beginning of the year, I just wanted to be a certain number in my geographical farm, do a certain volume in total, and then be ranked in a certain way on Google. So I haven't checked Google in a minute, but I'm doing okay on the geographical farm and pretty okay on the volume. So yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear it.
Thanks.
Do you have anything you're looking forward to for the rest of this year? It doesn't have to be real estate related.
Yes. I mean, the rest of the year, not real estate related. I have 3 kids and Christmas is so fun. But all that stuff
Yeah.
is like, little travel. But anyways, for real estate related, I have a lot going on. So I have a small team that was kind of started a little prematurely. I switched brokerages and a couple people came, and it's really working right now. But I do have a vision of more like systemized tech stack, a little clearer everything. When you start and is kind of going through the motions as you're building it, it's a little different than when it's clear, like repeatable, everyone understands fully. So that is something I'm excited about. I'm hiring some people to take on the tasks that I've been kind of perfecting over the last year and a half that I now realize like I need to give those to somebody else because they're more administrative kind of redistribution of social, things like that, and start doing some of the other stuff. So
That's so awesome. I'm so excited for you.
thank you. I'm excited.
Well, Katie, would you like to let people know how they can follow you, how they can work with you?
Yeah, I mean, on Instagram, I'm Katie Lucie Real Estate. Lucie's Lucie. Follow me, connect me, shoot me a DM. I will definitely respond. I love talking to people on social. So yeah.
Awesome. And we'll link it below in the show notes so everyone can find you super easy. Katie, thank you so
Okay.
much for your time
Yeah.
today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to The Closing Table, brought to you by WindowStill. I'm your host, Kat Schooler. Please be sure you're following our podcast on Apple or Spotify, and if you're part of our YouTube audience, make sure you hit that subscribe button. If you're enjoying our podcast, please feel free to leave us a comment or review. It helps us find more amazing listeners like you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.